Go ahead.
All right. Okay, and we're live. Welcome to HIVE Thrive Show number 40. Today's guest is one of the OGs, possibly the most OG guy I know from the times of the legacy chain, from the time of Steam, also known as Andrarchy. He shares my name, Andrew. He goes by Andy, and I think he has one of those e-bikes that can climb like 45-degree hills. And that is a joke, but it's also a pretty good guess, by the way. And we're going to talk about that also a little bit later. I am joined by my co-host, Coins, the Butt. And today we're going to talk about a lot of stuff. I was looking forward a lot to this conversation because Andrew Key is he doesn't know this. Well, he actually knows because 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, when he showed up again, I told him he's one of those people that influenced me heavily at the very beginning of my time in the blockchain. He was, I guess you could call it one of the early influencers of Steam back in the day. He was like one of the big accounts that I was like, oh, look at this guy, and then yeah, a lot of videos teaching you about Steam and all this stuff. Then he went to work for Steam Inc. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, which was it was a very interesting time in his life. And I met him in person in Poland. Also, that's where I met the Butt, and we had some really cool conversations. We talked about Yanis Varoufakis. Maybe we'll talk about that a little bit too. We share our love for the guy, and and he told me a personal story that in many ways shaped a lot of what I did back then for the chain and what I keep on doing.
Pangilin deck.
Um, I'm sorry. Was somebody has a hot mic? I think, or somebody tried to say something.
Mhm.
Uh, but so today I was really looking forward to this conversation. Andrew Key showed up on Hive like 2 or 3 weeks ago out of the blue. I think he's one of those dudes that just went like, hey, I still have these keys. Let me see what's going on. And then just said hi. And I think he had a fun surprise when little avatars started showing up saying hi back and welcome, and we invited him to Discord. And I'm gonna let him talk about his coming back. His I don't know if it's a redemption story. I don't know what you would call it, but his coming home. Let's call it homecoming. Let's call it that. Himself. Bitcoins. How are you doing, my brother?
I'm doing well. It's another day in paradise, and looking forward to the chat as well. Me and Andrew, we've met twice in person. We also saw each other in Thailand, and I also am looking forward to this chat. More just for like, I actually took some heat a few times over that I don't go hard enough on people, and I just like to like I don't feel like that's the point of this show. I feel like the point of this show is to have friendly, interesting conversations and explore all sides and hear all sides and come at it from a friendly position. And so that's definitely the way I'm coming into it here today with Andrarchy. I'm really interested to peek a little bit behind the curtain. Maybe he can share a few things that some of us didn't realize, maybe not. But yeah, looking forward to it.
Awesome, awesome. Well, I guess I'll get started with the simple question, because I mean most people might know about Andrew Key and might know about his early days and his whiteboard videos, but maybe not. Um, so let's get started with this. Andrew Key, like, how did you find Legacy Chain, and how is it that you became well, you were one of the first orcas I think I found. Like, tell me a story. How is it that you found Steam? Was it your first crypto? Was it, you're already like a Bitcoin guy, and then all of a sudden they told you, hey, you can make content here?
Um, sure, yeah, I'm happy to answer that. And if please feel free to ask me the tough questions to butt coins. Obviously, I think people should always be respectful of one another, but I also like really value critical feedback, and I'm happy to answer. Uh, yeah, like the hardest question, as long as it's asked respectfully, you could ask me like why I'm not Satan or something. I don't give a shit. not offended.
Great.
Wouldn't have lasted very long at Steemit if I
Nice.
didn't.
Noted.
And then and then after that, if I didn't have a thick skin. But yeah, no, I love challenging questions, so happy to answer anything. As far as how I got started, pretty soon after it came out, about 2009, I think. It's so long ago at this point, I can't really remember, but very early on, I remember I have this vivid memory of trying to buy Bitcoin on Mount Gox and seeing that it was $9 and being like, well, it's probably overpriced at $9. Um, but I was a big kind of advocate for it in my own circles. Would Was very strongly in favor of it. Had kind of a distinct view of it that I hold to this day. That actually ties into smart media tokens. But I pretty quickly came to the conclusion like, oh, there's going to be a proliferation of chains. There's going to be a proliferation of money, and this is great. What really got me interested in Bitcoin to begin with was the idea that the dollar needed competition, that you had this. We had just had 2000. We just had the financial crisis, and my kind of big takeaway after going down that rabbit hole was that it's not a super common takeaway, but basically I was like, well, the reason this happened is because we basically only have one financial system, and if there's a faulty design in that system, then you get a crash, right? There's no competition, there's no one really keeping it honest, and so when things go wrong, they go wrong at a systemic global in a systemic global way. And so then Bitcoin comes out and it's like, see, there is a way. And like I would tell people that, and they would be like, okay, but there's no way to have a competing currency. It's not legal, whatever. But then Bitcoin came out, and I was like, see, it is possible. This is how you do it. It's open source. It's decentralized. And hey, look, like we can launch our own. And in fact, and that kind of, I think that really encapsulates my kind of entire trajectory through the blockchain space. Because from there, Litecoin came out. I was trying to build my first application, which was a social network for like donating to nonprofits. And so I wanted to implement like a loyalty point system. And so we forked Litecoin and we kind of used that as the back end for this loyalty point system. Terrible business idea, terrible execution, didn't go anywhere. But I do think that I was the first person to integrate a crypto or a blockchain into a social network. Um, so, when Steam came out, so I was floating around those circles, the Bitcoin circles, the libertarian circles. Um, and yeah, when Steam came out, I found out pretty quickly, and I was like, oh, look at this. I'd always wanted to be involved in storytelling. I'd been playing around with videography, and my brother is a writer director out in Hollywood. Um, and so I wanted to get involved in content creation and storytelling, but I just felt like the economics didn't really make sense. I didn't want to go on YouTube and like for nothing. And so Steam came out and it's like, oh, look, I can get paid to explore this interest of mine, and that's basically what happened. That's what got me interested, and yeah, uh, um, I I was able to whatever. I won't go into the details. I'll just skip to. I do think that connection to smart media tokens is kind of interesting because eventually I went to work at Steam, right? So like I created content, and I felt like Steam was really doing a bad job of basically marketing. And so I kind of like weaseled my way onto the team, and they wanted a community manager. I was like, fine, if that's what you want, I'll do it. And they offered me like very little money. I started working half time. I was working half time as basically a community manager. We called it community liaison because we were, I was stupid and thought that was a good idea. Um, and eventually just kind of worked my way up. Basically, the way I like to say it is that every time every time the market would boom, they would hire somebody over me, and every time it would bust, they would fire a bunch of people and I would get a promotion. And that was like 100% my trajectory the whole time. At some point they hired this guy Mitchell, um, who acted cokey. I'll say he acted cokey. Um, and but he was very not very involved. I wound up doing most of the work. But one day he and I were having a conversation, and we were like, we need tokens on Steam. I guess ERC20 tokens had come out or something. And like I said, the future had always seemed to me lots of tokens. And so we pitched Ned on adding tokens to Steam, or at least this is my perspective. I actually think there were multiple perspectives behind smart media tokens, looking back. But like we totally pitched it. I think we came up with the name. Um, and yeah, that's I'll just pause there. Hear what you want to hear about next.
Nice, nice. Yeah, actually, I had a fair, different, a little bit different trajectory. But one of the things for me with Steam when I came across it first was like, social media and crypto. That makes sense. And it just was like it was like a perfect time. And I didn't like the idea of like, I don't know, trying to like monetize on YouTube similarly. And it just made sense at that time in my life. So that's kind of what initially brought me to Steam, not necessarily what kept me around, but yeah, so that's interesting.
Well,
So
sorry. I want to I want to clarify something, which
okay.
is, and it's all kind of coming back to me. I want to ask for some leniency here from anyone listening. In that, like, I um I kind of have this ability to like focus very intensely and totally forget about other things, even for like years. And so like in a lot of ways I like haven't thought about this period of my life. So like stuff is kind of coming back to me, which is cool, but also like it takes a second. Um, but I
Cool.
definitely like part of my thinking. I think of myself. I like to think of myself as an unorthodox investor, and so I kind of think about everything as an investment. And so like I develop theses, and then I figure out like how I can deploy various forms of capital to back that thesis up. Um, but like it's but with the goal of like getting a better understanding of reality and viewing investment as a kind of a test of your like comprehension, and understanding. And so I think part of it with Steam was that I had formed this thesis that like crypto and Bitcoin, right? These were information networks, right? And their value stemmed from their ability to facilitate information transfer among people. Um, and so when Steam came out, I think a very big part of it for me, like, yeah, there are the features, but the higher level features aren't really what kind of stir people's spirits, in my opinion. It's really like the deeper narrative. And for me, it was hard to see how Bitcoin, right? So like the whole argument behind Bitcoin is like, look, this is a decentralized network. Very early on, people were talking about it disrupting social media, and disrupting the internet. And it was like, yeah, but how? How's that actually going to happen? And so when Steam came out, it was like, oh, well, people use words to communicate. So you've now got a blockchain, that actually can transmit ideas. And now this is much closer to what the internet looks like than Bitcoin. And so it was believable at that time that, I mean, I think this is like an important, maybe an important point to highlight for people who came along, who are much more recent. I don't know, but like it was believable at that point to think that Steam was like the next Bitcoin. I mean, which was very
Mhm.
exciting. Yeah, it was
Yeah,
totally
definitely.
believable. That's yeah.
Like you said something when you first came back in, about you haven't fully processed, and it kind of triggered into me too. Like, I don't know if I've fully processed. So, we could treat this a little bit like a therapy session. And uh, so, look, let's just dig into like something that is so personal to me. We were all at
Mm.
Thailand together, and I've always had this nagging feeling that we were all there. I gave a chat and was just all about like that we need to infect, the world with the idea of what Steam is. And I was big promoter. I really did care. And there was always this nagging feeling because it was just quite quickly after that Thailand that everything went down. And like, behind the scenes, what was was there already whispers going on? Did folks know, even though we were all like Steam, Steam, Steam? Did we know Justin was behind the curtain? Their knowledge that this thing with Justin was happening.
Um. Okay. Yeah. I think I can give you some juicy
Nice.
morsels, or
Yeah, let's
maybe
do it.
maybe it won't be juicy, but I think enough time has passed. Before I go on to that answer, let me just say, one thing that I um, just want to kind of make clear or just say is that, because I see, like, I think I see Dan's icon, but it doesn't. Um, the some of I really loved so many people in the Steam ecosystem, and who are now in the Hive. And when I left, I really lost a lot of friends. And uh, yeah, I just had so much appreciation and affection for so many people in the ecosystem, and still do. And I think that's really what draws me back here more than anything is maybe the hope of like reconnecting with all of you, Mino, uh butt coins. Whatever. Because yeah, I mean, like the connections I made, that period of Steam was really like, it was really one of the best times of my life, if not the best times of my best time of my life. And the people that I met through Steam, now Hive, um, were really some of the just best relationships. And I really miss all those people and the relationship that we had. And I so I just want to just get that out there. But to answer your question, yeah, and like the Steam Fest, oh, those were like the best times. But like, it's funny. Definitely things started to go downhill for me the moment I joined Steemit. Um, I really almost wish that I
You did?
definitely I definitely wish. Um, sorry, what was that?
Is that somebody didn't mute
Somebody
their voice?
talking? Oh, okay.
No.
Um, so yeah, like it's so funny, man. I would definitely be richer if I'd never joined Steemit and I never started my own company. That's kind of a funny thing. um anyway, well, and I think happier and better off. I don't know. Like I don't have any regrets, but like yeah, it was tough going to work for Steemit. So but the Steam Fest were always like a highlight. Um the last one in Thailand, it definitely, well, it had a vibe to it. I don't think so. The juicy morsel that I can give you is that, oh, because somebody from Tron was there. So I'll cop to something that may be triggering. But in some ways, the Tron takeover was kind of my fault. Now, give me a second. It's maybe not as bad as that sounds. What I was trying to do was, so I was friendly with, well, I thought I was. I thought I was friendly with Roy, who worked for Justin Sun. Um, None of those people you can trust. I mean the people who worked at Tron, but like, um, and what I was trying to do, what was I trying to do? I was trying to facilitate like an investment. Okay. Like they had a ton of money and we were always struggling. So we must have been struggling at that time, right? If memory serves, that was well into the bear market, right? Um, so, and I think that the financial difficulties that the organization was having were known. I think Ned was letting it be known. Um, and anyway, so I like facilitated the intro. I'd met this guy. I'd been invited to to one of their conferences, and I spoke. And I was like, I'm trying to remember. It's hard to remember and talk at the same time. But like 100%, I was not like, you should, acquire SteamEd and, you know, kill the chain. I was like, you should invest in us. We've got great tech. Um, you've got smart contracts. Like, I think the way I was looking at it was we weren't competitors because they were a general purpose blockchain and we were a social media blockchain and we needed money. So, like, what if there was a way? I mean, I think it was a sound strategy to be perfectly fucking honest. Like, they had a ton of money. They had smart contracts. I think at that point it was pretty clear that smart contracts were important going forward, and it seemed like a mutually beneficial arrangement. And then like Roy stopped talking to me for a while. And now, so this is that's Thailand, you know. I remember this might give some insight. We're at Thailand, and it's all about smart media tokens. So where our headspace was 100% was smart media tokens are our hope for turning this around. We've done a ton of work. We've got a sick demo for this smart media token launcher. We're going to give this, and this is the future of Steam. So that's where the team's head was at. And then at one point, I have this vivid memory. We're at this party where it's outside. It's outside the hotel. It was that party. Um, we had that view. We had that inside, like that panoramic view. We were way up high.
Mhm.
Um, and somebody's like, "Hey, that guy from Tron is here." And I was like, "Who the fuck?" And they're like, "Yeah, there's like a team from Tron here." I was like, "What are they doing here?" And I go up. I'm like, "Hey guys, how's it going?" what are you guys doing here? And they're like, oh, we're just like coming to meet the community. I'm like, huh, that's fucking weird. And I think like the whole team had that reaction where we were like, why the fuck are they here? Um, so that's my recollection of Thailand, is that it did have a funky vibe. I think most of that vibe was really because of the bear market. But it probably was this inflection point. I think what was it like pretty soon after that the whole Tron business started to happen?
Yeah, I mean, so what I'm hearing is that there was, there had been some chats with Tron, but as of Thailand, there was nothing like known. And so yeah, it would definitely happened after Thailand. I think it was all in January, February when it was really going down. And but yeah, so
The team was just to reiterate. It's funny. Like I haven't thought about this in 4 years, and I guess I'll just assume it's funny because I'm like everybody knows this stuff, but I guess it happened a long time ago now, so not a lot of people do. So a lot of this stuff that I say might be stuff people already know. But we did say at the time, and it was true that the team was totally kept in the dark. We were totally kept in the dark until it was done. So we didn't even know we were getting sold until we were sold.
I would go one
And
step
then we were like,
farther as
yeah.
a user and say, I didn't even know we could be sold. Like I didn't even like didn't seem like it was a possibility. I thought we were some decentralized chain that was not sellable.
Yeah,
But
that was certainly
that's my own naivety.
I mean, I guess we were all naive. I definitely felt the same way. I remember I have so many vivid memories, but like they um I remember when they were like when they were when they put out they put out a press release saying something like oh, we're gonna like integrate. They basically said like they were gonna sunset Steam and like bring everything onto Tron. And we were like, what does that even mean? Um, we were like, that doesn't even make sense. That's not even possible. And some of the stuff they said they were going to do was not possible, um, and didn't make any sense. And we spent, I mean, you guys wouldn't believe, man, the uh, Kafka-esque interactions we would have with that team. It was insane. It was insane. They were insane. Um, and that was one of the most stressful times of my life. And I mean, it was crazy because like, guys, people, working at Steemit for 4 years was bananas. It was incredibly stressful, to say the least, for every single person there. That period somehow took it to 11. It was like a 10 for 4 years of just the most insane stress I think people can imagine. Um, and then it was
Well,
just like, oh, you thought you were maxed out? Yeah, no. The dial
here,
goes to
here's
11.
here's the cherry on top of it. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
well, you're kind of, and I do want to kind of like, because we're already at the halfway point, but I do want to keep digging into this
Oh wow.
briefly. Then I want to make the switch into Hive. But so
Hmm.
specifically when we say when you guys on the internal like are now not in the dark anymore and the process is happening, that Hive or I'm sorry, that Steam is being taken over by Tron. And I'm just kind of curious, like you personally, like where did you sit? Did you initially think that maybe it could be a good idea, or was it pretty obvious from the get-go that these guys were not what they were posing as. I mean, you already said that they were like, oh, we're going to just port it over, and so that's already probably a red flag. But I'm just kind of curious where you were at in that mix, like, and the team in general. Was it hopeful? I know from my and I'll just characterize this from my side. I
Mm,
thought, huh, maybe this could work.
mhm,
We need money. These guys have money, and so I've always been an on the fence kind of guy. I'm interested in both sides. I like hearing both sides. And so I would say I leaned somewhere in the middle during all of this time where I was like, maybe it could be a good thing. But in hindsight, after being in Hive, I'm really glad that it happened. But that's all with hindsight, because when the fork happened in Hive, I was pretty upset by the way it went down, and it took me a little while
mm.
to get over it and get back into Hive. But so I'm just kind of curious where the actual team was and what you were seeing from the inside, and then maybe we'll make a switch into talking a little bit more about Hive.
Yeah, so it's an interesting question. One important thing to bear in mind is that I think it's fair to say that very few people loved Steam. Well, sorry, let me put it a different way. So at this point, the team is um, Roadscape and Michael Vanderberg, myself, and like not that many other people, unlike Ned. It's like we're down to the skeleton crew. Um, Also,
There was that
Steve
chick,
Gerbino
wasn't
was
there?
there.
There was a chick that was, or
Oh,
some woman.
oh, 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 oh yeah, another person who got hired over me. Elizabeth, Elizabeth or something. Yeah, but yeah, she
Yeah,
did nothing.
yeah, yeah.
She was like some hire to be like I don't know what the hell. I mean, she was really nice. Um, uh, but like yeah, she didn't really do anything. She was in way overhead. She had no idea what was going on. The team was really Michael and Steve as the blockchain developers, and then Roadscape as the developer of HiveMind, and me as like everything else. Well, and Ned, I mean Ned's there, but Ned sold it. Ned was like, I'm basically like, I'm done. I want to sell this thing. Um, and so then this is the team that's left. Like, yeah, like Elizabeth, she was just like an executive and we were way too small to even have an executive, so it's just like a needless layer where we're just like, she was more like, what she was an intermediary between us and Ned. That's like 100% what she was. Like Ned would
Mm,
talk to her, we would talk to her, no, but that was it. There was like that, she
mm.
was like a layer, but like she was like a buffer so that Ned didn't have to deal directly with us. Like I think Ned anyway, like I don't think Ned really liked us. So we were like this. It was like this really weird situation where so Michael basically wrote Steam, So it's his baby. Um, Roadscape had been an early adopter. He wrote the first block explorer for Steam, and then he got brought onto the team and was just like such a phenomenal developer. And like he was such a phenomenal, he had a similar trajectory to me where he would just keep getting promoted, but he started at the bottom, he as a community member. um and then there's me. So and I can just tell you that I loved Steam and thought it and really believed in it. um and so all this stuff is happening, and I think we were trying to we were we were being optimistic. We were trying to be optimistic. We were trying to find the silver lining. We knew the struggles that Steam had. We knew, we and it's like, it's not just the money. We also understood that Ned wasn't going to be able to. I would say we had lost faith in Ned as a leader. Um,
Mhm.
and I actually have like much more sympathy for Ned and Dan than I did back then, having tried to start something myself, having started something myself. But we had certainly lost confidence in him. So between not having any money and losing the confidence, we were choosing. If we didn't have hope, we would have resigned the moment that we found out that Steam had been taken over. Oh, and Justin Welch was still there. Um, uh, he like head of engineering, who also loved it, who also loved Steam and believed in Steam. Um, so, but certainly Michael and I and Roadscape, like true believers, we were going to find a way to make this situation work, and we went, we flew out to San Francisco. Um, they flew us out to San Francisco. They gave us like a day's notice. They were like, come out to San Francisco. And we're like, okay. And we like had a brainstorming session, and we were like just the team. Like Ned is out. Ned is not interested. So it's just the team now. We're like, okay, I guess we work for these guys now. Okay, we're gonna pitch them on bridging, on building a bridge between Steam and Tron. And like, I'm sorry, like looking back now, come on, that's a good fucking idea. I mean,
Mhm.
like bridges became a thing. Like if we could have bridged Steam to Tron at that time and implemented smart media tokens, all these things were totally technically possible. Now, would that bridge have been hacked eventually? Uh, you know, okay. I mean, you can't rule that out. So that's the fly in that theory. But
And I'm curious, was there a specific breaking moment? Like, was there just like this one clear, like, what the fuck are these guys? It's like you got these new bosses, and then you fly out there. Was there just like this one moment where it's just like, Jesus Christ, these fucking clowns, but, or whatever.
well, I can't say there was one moment, and I can tell you exactly why. I'm pretty sure we resigned as a team 3 times. So there were 3 moments. I think there were 3 moments. So the news release comes out where they're like, we're buying. We bought we bought Steam, and we're bringing it onto Tron. And we're like, that's not possible. These people are crazy. What they're talking about is illegal and insane and technically not possible. We resign. Um, and then Elizabeth, the managing director or whatever, she was like, no, you guys can't resign. Please, please. She begged us to stay. And so so there was convincing. They were like, no, that's not what they meant. There's a lot of, that's not what we meant. That's not what they meant. Come on, just work with us. We can make it work. Because like now looking back, there was, at the time, it felt like, okay, they're listening to reason. They want to make this work, obviously, because if we make this work, everybody gets richer. Like, duh. We make Steam more valuable. They own, they own Steam. They have a large Steam stake. They make more money. If we can make Tron more valuable, we can make Tron more valuable. Like nobody was really using Tron. I don't think anybody really uses Tron today. So like there was a ton of value that Steam could have added as an application that was tied into Tron, and that would work with a bridge. If there was a bridge, it would all make sense. Um, and it eventually just became clear that they wanted to do things their way, um, and they wanted and they would tell us whatever they had to tell us to go along with it. And so I think the final breaking moment was, the final breaking moment was I was on a plane. God, it's traumatic when you have such vivid memories. Um I was, because I remember uh, I had just done an interview with John Rice at Coin Telegraph or whatever. That's when I found out that the acquisition had gone through. And I was on the bus back, and that's when we first decided to resign. And we had a team call and we all huddled. And then the last time I was on the plane coming back from Florida, I think, well, whatever, I was on a plane and we found out about well, what did they do? They like they like voted, they like used their stake, they took over the chain. So that's when it was. It was when
The
they
sock
actually,
puppet, the sock puppet moment.
yeah, it was when we saw, yeah, it was when they
It
like,
took over the witnesses that with the sock puppets and stake.
yeah, and what was that? They executed the exchange attack. That was the clear breaking point. Then we were like, well, yeah, we're done. Um,
I
so yeah.
mean, like from what I'm hearing is from the inside, it's pretty clear that they had their own objectives and they were going to do it no matter what, but they were going to use everything to muddy the water and make it like, no, we're going to work with you and backtrack and anything they could do to keep the community happy for long enough, but that their real goal was clear and they weren't gonna like change from that. So then we
Yeah.
get into this
Look,
this next
look,
this,
I can keep it even simpler. I don't know if this is
mm,
obvious by now. They did not give a shit about anything.
the
They
community,
didn't
the
give it,
community or anything. Yeah.
they couldn't have cared less. I mean, it was really stunning and really like hurtful, you know? I mean, it was like, yeah, I totally believed um like they got to see the value here. They spent the money. They bought this thing. But I think the truth is that for Justin's son, it was a pittance
Yeah, it was
and
peanuts.
it was peanuts, and he couldn't have cared less about any of it. I think, I mean, look, I think that the Chinese people are an amazing people. Um, but I think what we saw in our interactions with them were kind of the worst side of Chinese culture, where it was just like, we will say what we need to say. We don't care, you know, we will deceive you. We only care about money. Um, and getting our way, and we'll say whatever to you, stupid Americans or whatever. It was
It,
awful, man.
it,
It was
it did
awful.
feel like that. I was at that town hall meeting, and definitely, you could kind of feel it there for sure. You know, I held
Yeah, I
out
mean, I
hope.
think he's a monster. I think he's actually like Ned and Dan. I don't think are monsters. I think he is. I think that guy's a fucking monster.
And you know what, this was a great pivot into talking about Hive. So here we were,
Yeah.
you know, here we have this like origin story of Hive. Like we fought a monster, we collectively came together as a community, we forked away. And I think that narrative is very powerful. It still is powerful, but we've you know, got many years distance from it now, so it's just not there. And even I think for a time period, I mean, we jumped into the top 30. Hive was in the top 30 briefly, and you know, we really, it really felt powerful for a time period there. And I'm curious, like, if you see anything like what are Hivians not seeing? As did we not grab that narrative well enough? Did we not, what like because I would say that, you know, we can clearly say Steam is not in Thrive. And I would say, if we were looking at honestly, Hive is not in Thrive currently. Doesn't mean we can't be, but I would say currently we are not. And I sometimes wonder, what did we miss in those months? Like,
Hmm.
should we have capitalized some way more on this narrative? Did like maybe you don't even know, maybe, but I'm curious what you would
Oh
say
no,
is like.
I have an
Yeah, go
opinion.
for it. Yeah, go for it. Go for it. Give
No,
us your
I
opinion.
have an opinion. which I had shared at the time, and which I have shared with other people. So, well, first, I'd like to clear up some air around the fractures. So, our perspective, I think we were really disappointed to see that when the Hive fork happened, like our attitude was, that's great. They executed the fork. Um, Basically, Steam's future is secure in Hive. But what is Hive going to need in the future? And we were like, it. Well, sorry. Like, great. These people can keep Hive going. What we should be doing, as the people who are most expert in the underlying technology, is be looking forward to what Hive is going to need to scale to the next level. And basically, I mean, look, the message that we received, that we felt was abundantly clear, it was basically exactly what Justin Sun was saying to us, which was, actually, you do whatever the fuck we want you to do. And we were like, uh, we don't work for you. Fuck you. um, and we're going to go work on what we think is the right thing to work on. And sorry, to be specific, I'm talking about Dan Notestein, um, block trades. The message we received from him was, I'm in control now. This is my chain. If you guys want to come and work on, like, you should work on Hive, and you should do what I think needs to be done. And we were like, you don't pay us. And we're done working for egomaniacs. Because we've basically had a trifecta. Dan, Ned, sorry, Dan Larimer, then Ned, then Justin Sun briefly. But we were like, look, we'll help you guys. We're here. Like, and obviously I'm speaking kind of on behalf of the blockchain team, but Steve and Michael we're like, yeah, we'll help you. You got any questions? You want us around? And they were like, no, we don't want you in the conversation. We don't want to be working with you. Like, you're either with us or against us, was basically the message that we got. And so we were like, well, we're going to go work on what we think needs to be done next. And so that's why we built Koinos, was because Koinos, you can just, like, if you want to know what we think needed to be fixed in Steam or Hive, you can literally just go look at Koinos, and every single decision in there is what we would do differently. It's built on a microservice architecture instead of the plugin architecture that Hive used. It obviously has smart contracts. The smart contracts are WASM, are WebAssembly, right? So it's a general purpose blockchain, whatever. So that was, but I guess it ultimately boiled down to smart contracts and believing that we needed to migrate to a platform that was scalable in every way, and that counterintuitively included smart contracts. For a while, we had thought that smart contracts weren't scalable. And we ultimately came to the conclusion that actually smart contracts were the key to scaling, for what, for reasons that I wouldn't want to dive into. And so, you know, what we recommended, what I proposed to a number of people many times, was we should be working together and collaborating to migrate Hive over to Koinos. I'm not suggesting this now, but like another option. I wouldn't even I would probably wouldn't suggest any of this, but like theoretically, Hive could be like re-implemented on the Koinos framework, and I'm pretty sure it would be like faster and it would have smart contracts and all that stuff. I'm not really suggesting that, but like this, I'm trying to be honest about our mindset here. Like in our minds, we were like, keep Hive going. We'll get this more performant, more scalable, general purpose blockchain going, and then we'll kind of like meet in the middle, and like you come on this, and everybody will live happily ever after. I mean, that was the story we were telling ourselves. But it did come down to the belief that general purpose blockchains were the future, and at the root of it, Hive is an application specific blockchain, and that creates a lot of challenges. And I do believe that it's the source most of the problems that people perceive. Now, the last thing I really want to do is come back and tell people about everything that's wrong with Hive. My position or takeaway would be something more like, accept Hive for what it is, understand Hive for what it is. Don't try to make it something it's not. Um,
Yeah, so
does
I'm
that make
not sure
sense?
if yeah, it does. I just don't know if I heard the just maybe the idea of like what wasn't capitalized on, or just like your opinion on what's holding Hive back. I don't think saying something like that is coming to shit on Hive. I would just
Okay,
like to hear another person's
sure.
opinion, to just like to hear it.
Oh yeah. Okay. Uh, it's I'll this is my opinion. I don't even know if I'm right here. Um, but the um I like to think that I've learned humility and how wrong I can be over the course of these 8 years. I've been wrong so many times. But in my mind, the ideal outcome was we transition from Steam to Hive. The witnesses keep that going. And then basically we migrate Hive onto a general purpose blockchain, Koinos. Um, and that would be able to uncork Hive, because a big part of the problem, I think, with Hive and Steam, whatever, is that it's siloed. It's disconnected from anything. And by the way, I mean, Koinos might not be the right answer for this, because Koinos wound up being siloed too. Nobody's really solved the bridging problem. Now, the benefit of a general purpose blockchain is at least applications aren't siloed from one another, right? So like you come to like, I think of Hive as a universal database of social information. Okay. Like that's how I think about Hive. Um, I envisioned an Uber powered by Steam, a Airbnb powered by Steam. That was the vision of the future that really appealed to me. You can't really do that on the current architecture. Now you move to a general purpose blockchain, and you have this universal social database. Now somebody wants to build an Uber competitor. All they have to do is build that additional logic on smart contracts, and then tie into the existing social contracts, the Hive contracts. So, right, so that was my vision, was that, basically we'll convert all of the business logic on Hive into smart contracts running on Koinos, and now any app can come build on Koinos and take advantage of this pre-existing social database, and it's going to benefit Hive because all the users that come in to use that Uber, that Airbnb, well, they're created in the Hive database, right? They create their Hive accounts, they do all that stuff. So that was my vision: was we replicate all of the, like, we actually got pretty far in that if you think about it. Like, we had human readable account names, we have human readable account names on Koinos. I'm not pitching Koinos, by the way, because like what would happen is, and I think that this was probably inevitable, and it was probably naive of me to think of it this way, but like anytime we would implement, like, I would talk to people on Hive and I would be like, we should look, like, let's bring those smart contracts over, and they would be like, no. And then some developer would build a Hive feature on Koinos, and the impression that I would get is like, okay, well, this is competing now. And like the more Hive-like features were added to Koinos, the more the impression in the Hive community was that this was some kind of like competitive thing. Um, and I wish that that hadn't been the case. I wish that it had been more synergistic, and that the progression had been a merging of the two things, and then both would benefit from the different value propositions of the two protocols. So like that's what I wanted to happen, and that would, to put it in more like to your terms, was like that's what I think should have happened in order to that would have led to the best outcome, in my opinion.
So
Um,
what I'm
but
hearing,
like, yeah,
what I'm hearing you say
but I'm not
is,
saying I'm right. I like,
right.
yeah.
But what I hear is that you think one of the things that have held Hive back is that this idea that it's siloed. Um, maybe it's hard to get on it. You really have to like go to it or something. It's like separate from the overall like crypto community. Is that what you're saying? Like,
If I had to, yeah, 100%. I mean, I would say that, yeah, yeah. I mean, that's the big thing. I mean, yeah. If I were starting over with Koinos, I would, I would probably try to build it as a layer two, on something else, and it's for the exact same reason. Um, even bridging, as we've learned the hard way, is insufficient. Um, yeah.
but we it's crazy. We've been chatting for an hour already, and I don't know if Mina, you have anything. We can keep talking in the after show. But the Mina, do you have anything you feel pertinent to bring into the equation, or Shadows? I think you're there as well.
Yeah, for sure. I have a lot of questions. This is a very interesting conversation. It kind of proves to me what I thought was already the truth. I was sure that I believe you, Andrarchy, to be a very ethical person. The fact that we both enjoy Yanis Varoufakis kind of says a lot about your morals. So although we never talked about, um, what happened and the fork and the Justin Sun thing, hearing this from your mouth, it's refreshing to me because I always put you in the category of the good guys. So I'm glad I
Oh,
was
thank
right.
you.
uh, but
Oh, thank
I
you.
have to say,
That's very kind of you to say.
dude, I mean it. But I do have to say though that when you left for Koinos, I was a little sad, and it's not because I have this purity test that I do for people that I go like, oh no, you got to be Hive, and if you're not Hive, screw you. It was more because I recognize your talent, and I appreciate your mind. And I was like, hey, we're losing one of the pillars of the community, but going to Koinos. And so I again, one of the things that you're not trying to do, and you made it perfectly clear. And whoever listens to this, I want them to know you're not here to pitch Koinos. It's not like, hey, I'm doing Koinos and stuff. But obviously, you're not. So I want to go in, maybe not into too much detail, maybe if you don't want to, but I do want you to share the part that why you left Koinos and how you ended up coming back to Hive, to write on the blog, because that's what you're doing right now. It's like you're not working for. you're not working for, I guess, is there even a company anymore? There's no company, so now we're kind of really
Oh no,
decentralized. You're not
the company still exists.
hmm. Oh, the
Yeah,
Koinos
no,
company.
Koinos Group. The company technically still exists, but it's winding down.
Got you. So when did you leave?
Hmm. I left just over a year ago, the day before my third child was born. Um, and I've like barely thought about it since then. And guys, it's been pretty great. Not thinking about, I got, you know, if touch grass, like it's good not to think about blockchain every once in a while and not to think about crypto. Um, so yeah, I left Koinos Group. Well, so gosh, I barely thought about it in so long. First of all, I'm still friendly with the whole team. Basically, what had happened, I mean, the way that I would put it is that like, hmm, it's funny to think about. My whole career in blockchain, um, I felt pretty insecure, in part because I felt like people mostly viewed me like at best as the marketing douchebag. Um, or the community like representative in a weird way. Like I always felt like I was stuck in these impossible positions. Um, like a big part, I saw a big part of my job for a while as being the representative of the community within Steemit Inc. Um, and so, but like, I would always get pushback, it's like, like at times I was the representative of the community. At times I was the representative of the blockchain team to management. I was like the representative of everybody who's like feeling shit on. Um, and so yeah, like the community would like me when I was trying to look out for their interests, but then sometimes that interest conflicted with like the blockchain and what needed to be done at the blockchain level, and there's no community if there's no blockchain, so I'd have to pivot over and I would have to like represent the blockchain team and their interests and like push for what they wanted to get done. um, or the Hive Mind team, which was really just Roadscape. He was fighting for Hive Mind for literally years, right? And so like I'd have to jump around and defend whoever like needed the most support. So when we left, my when we left, I was like, I got to do whatever it takes to keep these guys together. And I think what really united us was the belief in the importance of a feeless blockchain, which I think is kind of highlights maybe some of the tension between our team and the Hive kind of ecosystem, community, developer, whatever. Like for us, it was really about the friction. Like we believe in blockchain, we believe in crypto, and we believe that it has to be like frictionless. um and that the basically the mana system pioneered in Steam was really the key innovation. And if it wasn't put into, and we were worried that it was going to die. That was our viewpoint. And so when Hive was doing its thing, we were like, that's great. They'll do that. Um, but what's the long term? What's the long term prospect here? If Hive dies, then there's no blockchain that's free to use, basically. So we got to put this into a smart contract platform. And part of me was just like, I want to keep working with these guys. These guys are great. They're like the most talented people I've ever met. So I was like, hey, let's start a company. Hey, let's do that. And I was just doing whatever. Like I had very little vision other than get these guys showing up to meetings day after day after day. Um, and then, and so we started kind of, it was pure brainstorming. Okay, what do we need? What do we need to do? Like, I don't even know if we necessarily started at we're building a new chain. We actually didn't. We started at building a layer 2 for Hive. That's a funny thing to remember. But pretty soon we moved away from that. I think it was a lot having to do with how we felt we were being treated by, frankly, Dan. Um, and so then it was like, okay, well, what's everybody's role? I was like, well, obviously Steve and Michael are the blockchain devs. And so I wound up being CEO by like omission, but by like a process of elimination. Sorry, this is such a long-winded answer. Basically, I feel like I was always kind of like an outcast, an outlier, like somebody who didn't belong in any of these organizations. Even when we started Koinos, it's like I'm I'm the CEO because I can't code, you know, not because everybody has faith in my leadership. And so for 4 years, I was able to kind of like battle my way, and it was through a lot of compromise. And don't get me wrong, I love Steve and Michael. I love Steve and Michael. Um, but it was like a constant battle um, to move things in the direction that I thought was right. I mean, like the CEO's role, in my opinion, is to lead, is to like have the vision and show the direction and, move things towards that goal. And it was always a really, really tough battle, in part because at the end of the day, and like again, I say this at no way to to discredit this. I don't mean this as a knock against Michael and Steve. At the end of the day, it has to be whatever they want to do because they're building the blockchain. And I still don't know of any other team that has done so much with so few people. I mean, 2 people wrote Koinos, and Koinos is really good tech. It's a totally new blockchain built from the ground up, and those dudes did it, how incredible. And so like, it was 4 years of the challenges of running a startup, raising money, pitching to VCs, dealing with all the other crap. Like, I think honestly, like, and I talk about this with Steve and Michael. It might be impossible. It's like the hardest thing in the world. Like starting up a company is hard enough. Starting up a blockchain and dealing with all the other bullshit that comes with blockchain and crypto and money and all that stuff, it's just so incredibly stressful and difficult. And so after 4 years, 4 years, I think my opinion is that their faith in my leadership. I think they as much said so. Basically, their faith in my leadership just wasn't strong enough, and so we had a team meeting, agreed that I would become the like head of communications or whatever. And it wound up feeling so much like the Steam like there were so many parallels with the Steam days where it was just like, okay, well, maybe this is for the best, now I can at least like, I love creating content. Now I can like, I can just focus on like the vision and telling the story, which is really what I want to do. I love telling stories and getting people excited about what we're building. I mean, I personally feel like if Steemit had just let me do what I wanted to do and tell the story of the community, of the technology, put out the content that I wanted to put out, I think we would have been vastly better off. I think that if they had let me find my feet and just be a content creator, it would have I would have drawn in so much more attention, so much more interest. And ironically, and I can't blame Ned for this, because the same thing happened at Koinos. I didn't allow myself or whatever, or I got so caught up in doing all of the startup shit that I barely created any content. So I was like miserable. I was unhappy. I didn't get to do what I wanted to do. I didn't get to do the thing where I think I can add the most value, which is creating content. And I think that's a really hard thing to do. I believe it's something I have an aptitude for. But ironically, it's something that I kept getting promoted outside my area of competence. That's to me, that's the through line from Steam to Koinos is me
This
getting promoted outside of my competence.
so this like brings up something like that it you're saying it in a different context, but I want to like shift it over to a very targeted question at you. So if we were to say like that magical like threading the needle and making the turnaround on Hive, like I really feel like we've got like so many of the pieces and we've got so many of possibilities, and we just seem to maybe sometimes struggle in messaging in kind of all agreeing that the decentralization element sometimes works against us to some extent. And so if
Yeah.
you saw a path, what would your magic path, if you were like, you know what, if you guys pointed in this direction, it's possible to thread that needle, like what do you got to say about that?
Yeah, I'll give you my opinion as long as everybody bears in mind that, I have little, I don't know what's going on. I have very little knowledge of the underlying, technology at this point. It's been 4 years. So what the heck do I know? You know,
Yeah, but
just with that,
sometimes it's like the fly on the wall perspective, right?
yeah,
It's
for sure.
sometimes
Yes.
it's the distance perspective that maybe can like see through it, because I feel like a little bit like overwhelmed. It's like so many little things.
Yeah.
So I'm interested in your fly on the wall perspective.
Yeah. No. And I think that makes perfect sense. It is hard to see when you're deep on the inside, really hard. And it does seem really obvious to me, the direction that it should be gone. So as long as we're on the same page that this is, looking for an outside perspective from somebody who is literally ignorant about the current state. To me, the obvious direction is um an Ethereum layer is basically pitchforking, however you want to put it. Um, it's a layer two on either Ethereum or Solana. Like the Ethereum example is a bit easier because like the abstractions are more well established. Um, and maybe Ethereum's the right choice anyway, but it's you re-implement all the features of Hive. This is not a simple task. It would be incredibly difficult. I know that. It it would be incredibly difficult. Probably not impossible. But you would re-implement all the features. Well, actually, there's the definition of an Ethereum layer 2 is surprisingly loose. But yeah, it would be re-implementing all the features, getting an Ethereum layer 2 ready, and then, like snapshotting all the accounts, all of all of the all of the content, I guess. I don't know what you would do with the content, but like, yeah, my ignorant fly on the wall thing would be, because like then you benefit from the important thing. And by the way, this was something I failed to appreciate with Koinos. Um, if you're not part, I'll give an example that might seem like kind of random or off topic. Um, when we were pitching Koinos, we were going to VCs and we're going, you should want to invest in this because this is even better than Solana and this is even better than Ethereum. What we were too, what we didn't consider is who these VCs were already invested in. Every VC that we were talking to was invested in either Ethereum or Solana. So every time we go to them and we say, look how much better we are, even if they believe us, they don't like us or want to invest in us because then they're investing in competition. So now, conversely, if you'd imagine those conversations were, we're building this thing that's going to make Ethereum this much better, or it's going to bring this functionality to Solana, now all of a sudden we're adding value to their ecosystem, you know? So it totally transforms things, right? So like that might not seem like obviously related, but my point is that when you're building on an existing platform, there's so many ways that you benefit from that. When you're not on a platform, you don't get any of those benefits. Now you're off on your own. You're fighting, and it might be that Cosmos is worth looking at or whatever. But like, point being, like, there are crazy benefits to being part of an existing ecosystem. And if you aren't part of an existing ecosystem, you don't get those benefits, and it puts you at an extremely severe competitive disadvantage.
So just first for my own clarity. So what I'm hearing is you're saying join like basically like take screenshots and port over and just be Hive on another chain. I'll just tell you straight up, like I can, personally, I struggle to see that ever like happening
Yeah.
just because of aspects of the Hive collective
Yeah. Well,
community.
sorry.
But
Let me put it a different. Let me put it just a different way, because I was thinking about
well,
this
let
earlier.
me just ask
Yeah.
this
Okay. Okay.
question to
Sure. Sure. Sure.
incorporate it in at the same time because I think
Hmm.
they'll
Hmm.
both link it. So, like, is there a world where, like, I mean, because what I could almost see is like Hive remains Hive, but like ports this other version of itself onto Ethereum. I think probably like some Hivians could maybe get on board with that. Just be like, hey, we're plunking our Hive over here in Ethereum. We're plunking it over here in Cosmos or where. And that could almost make sense to me. But I think Hive would always want to also simultaneously be its own thing. That's my opinion. But go ahead with
Yeah.
your point.
Yeah. That's my intuition as well. But here's the answer that I wish I'd given, because I literally thought about this before the call. Um, with any, I think a really good way to look at it is kind of asking what the product is. I think like fundamentally, I think I'm a product person. I like to think of myself as a product person. And so it's important to ask that question: what is this product? And I think that one of the things that Hive has always struggled with um, is it a protocol or is it an application? Right. And So if I had to give one recommendation, it wouldn't be really what I said. Um, I think maybe a better recommendation would be that it's important is to focus on understanding Hive as a product, figuring out what the product is, um, and improving that product. And like I think it was you who alluded to it. Somebody alluded to it earlier in the call. The challenges around decentralization, and to me, I think that this challenge is that this is illustrative of that challenge. I'm not saying it's an insurmountable challenge, but I think that because of the level of decentralization, and I don't mean like technical decentralization, but like to me, Hive does feel very decentralized in the sense that, you know, it's like a chaotic mess, which is what decentralization really should look like. But like if the consequence of that decentralization is a fragmented vision of the product, I think it's kind of inevitable that the product is right. Like imagine Steve Jobs was getting like working on the iPhone, and he was like, you know what we should do is we should get together a community of 1,000 people and like let them argue over what the iPhone should look like. I think that's really the root of the issue. Personally, as you know, as the outsider, like if you can come to a coherent and clear vision for the product, that everybody can get behind, kind of like how a corporation does it, you know, like like I certainly wouldn't be the first to say it. I feel like Dan Larimer has said similar things, right? But like we basically have to replicate the functionalities of a corporation within these decentralized communities, um, because like those things work, you know. So it's not an easy question of like how do you do that? What's the right way to do that? But like I do believe that, you know, in order for products to be successful, they need a strong vision and they need strong leadership, you know. Um, but the you know yeah yeah so I you know, and I like, sorry, let me be extra clear here. I'm definitely, you know, I'm sure I've said this too many times already. I'm not saying the community is doing anything wrong. I'm not saying anybody's doing anything wrong within the Hive ecosystem. My opinion was asked, and if I had to distill it down to one recommendation, it's, you know, it's continuing or to focus on what this product is, what Hive the product is, um, and refining it, improving it. Like, you know, it takes time to find product market fit. It's a really hard thing to do. You know, it's it's like close to impossible for a startup to do. You know, can decentralized communities even do it? Um, I don't know.
There's a if I can butt in for a second because I feel like this is going to add a
Please.
little bit of clarity to this. I think this is a challenge that happens with all type of open source software and decentralized, you know, open source software. Like if you look at Linux, which you could say arguably is the most successful open source project ever, is extremely fragmented. There's thousands of flavors of Linux, and there's all these, I'm going to call them tribes that prefer flavors, and they fight with each other and whatnot. And it's the same kernel, right? But there's a clear vision that a guy had from the beginning, you know, to kind of go with what you're saying with Linus Torvalds, and he still controls the repo, and he doesn't write a single line of code anymore. So I guess what I'm saying is that the problems that you're describing are known, but they can be mitigated. uh, and a
Well,
decentralized
yeah.
system like the ones that we have, we have a lot of repeat work, which can be annoying. People making the same thing over and over and not having synergy, which I agree. It's a pain in the butt. But at the same time, there's something that I don't know how to do it, and I certainly I don't I never heard an explanation that satisfied me. It is, how do you actually create a community? Because and what I mean by that is, like, you and I can sit here and come up with a great app, what we think is a great product.
Mhm.
We're like, oh, Andy has this idea and he pitched it to me, and I said, screw it. So I'm going to spend the next 5 months building it. And we build it and we believe strongly in it. But there's a possibility that we won't get users. And it's not because the product is bad. It's like a magic sauce and nobody can figure out.
Mm.
I'll say something as somebody who's a Hive Maxi, because I am a Hive Maxi, and I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I am. Uh, um, I know Hive is not perfect. I know that very much so. I mean, I'm building apps for Hive, and I'm having to do it with what we got. I know that, but I also know that nothing else is perfect either, because it doesn't matter where I go. If I try to build something on Solana, I'm gonna find some BS there. If I try to build on
Mm.
Tron, find some BS there and all that stuff. So I just go like, okay, what we have here is the fundamental block of something. The first brick is a community. Yeah, we might have toxic members, might have drama, but we have these people that are either idiots or geniuses that don't want to leave. And because we have that, building here makes sense, aside from the fact that the technology may not be the best out there. So, like, do you feel, for example, in that might be one of the reasons why, and I don't mean this to be insulting in any way, that Koinos didn't take off, because it wasn't able to garnish a community. It wasn't able to be like, hey, here's all these people are gonna put on the jersey, right? And then just whatever it takes. Hey, I'm gonna run my witness note at a loss, which Eddie and I are doing right now. Who cares? We're losing money, but we're here for Hive. Like, how do you make that happen? I don't even know if you would call it indoctrination. I don't know what that is. It's almost like this tribal initiation that we all agree on, and they're like, dude, we're here. I don't know what the fuck's gonna happen, but we're here.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I mean, I actually, I, um, I don't think community is the problem with Koinos. And I don't get offended at all. There's nobody who thinks about who thinks about more mistakes that were made than I do. Um, Look, there's another elephant in the room that I just want to mention with zero constructive insight. The money is another challenge, and I certainly also won't be the first to point this out. Um, the fact, I mean, there's nothing you could do about this. The whole value of Hive is that you can earn crypto posting, and that crypto is worth something. Like, that's incredible. Um, but there's also but when you monetize everything, and look, nobody was more bullish on the idea of monetizing everything than I was. But when you monetize everything, everything becomes about money, and things become zero sum really quickly. Um, and that's a challenge. That's another one of the challenges that I think people who've been thinking about Hive for a long time always kind of come back to, is that, like, yeah, it's the blessing and the curse. The crypto is the blessing and the curse. Um, I'm actually working on another app now myself, um, that I like to think could be helpful. And it's a journaling and note taking app, with no crypto, no crypto, no blockchain. Um, and the idea is to give people an interface that helps them connect better with themselves, gain deeper insight into themselves, and unearth more meaningful information. And the reason I bring this up is because I think with Hive, another part of the challenge is that it, part of the problem with being limited in its application is that its value becomes totally dependent on the quality of its content. And so, like, one of the things, oh God, these memories, they just keep coming. It's so funny. Um, one of the things I would periodically advocate for and try to work towards was resources for helping people create better content. And I don't know, there might still be something there as well. Like, my quick subjective assessment of the content that I've seen through the Hive interfaces, no offense, not trying to be a dick, low quality. Now I don't know if that's the interfaces or it's or if it's the material itself. My guess would be that it's the material itself, and that's because there's just not enough users. It's just really hard to create content. So I'm not trying to knock anybody. What I see are a lot of genuine people doing their best. But there's a reason why YouTube wasn't really successful until it had like hundreds of millions of users. Because for every million, how many hundreds of thousands of users do you need to have before you get one that's great? So, I think maybe one thing that could be done is a community effort to work together to create better content, to help people create better content. I don't know. Yeah. I don't know. That's just the thought that popped into my head. And I'm sure like people, like, I feel like these suggestions are probably stupid. Like, people have probably said all of these before a million times.
I think there's a lot of people on Hive, and anybody's welcome to correct me here, that are moving away from this idea that we're a content blockchain. I think it was the initial bait to get people in here. It worked amazingly because it made us become a community, made us become friends. So these days I'm still around because I have this emotional commitment to Hive, not because I'm making a lot of money. I think that's pretty obvious that I am not.
So what is it? If you allow me to push back, if it's not a content blockchain, what is it then?
You can really build whatever you want on it. I've started building some other stuff, but like I'll give you guys one that is hilarious, and I just built it, and it's working, and it's awesome. I automated the gate of the farm using Hive. So right now with when the Hive blockchains, one of the apps I just did, you send a custom JSON, and then I have this this Raspberry Pi that's listening to the operations on the blockchain, and it triggers a relay, and it opens the gate. And I can do that on Hive because I don't have to pay for fees. So I just put some delegated some resource credits to an account, and now the gate of my farm and all my family members right now have a Hive account. So when they open the farm gate, I know who opened the gate because it's been written in the custom JSON. So now I have a log, and this morning, oh, the gate was open at 6. Let me look at the camera because I can see it right on my phone. Okay, my cousin came in at 6 a.m. That's not content. It's not even showing on the on a front end of Hive. But I think we're moving away. I think I am, at least, from this idea that is all about content. It's not. It's whatever the hell you want to build. Some people are building games on top of Hive. You mentioned earlier, if somebody makes a clone for an Uber, that's an awesome idea. I saw 2 days ago a guy made a clone for Patreon. Sheenan, I don't know if that's how you say the name. he just made a clone for Patreon, and it's not content anymore. It's a subscription
Yeah.
model for content creators. So I mean, we have to move away from this thing that is like, oh no, it's about content. And if we don't, I agree with you, then we're kind of screwed.
I
Uh,
think,
but I think most of
yeah,
us are already there.
that's reasonable. I, I, I did feel like, yeah, it might be, there's a chance that vibe coding could be the unlock. Um, because the problem that I always felt like we had is that, um, because we were like, I agree with you. The potential was always in Steam as a platform for developers. And like it, if you were there back there, anytime you would hear Steam it like putting out communications that were like developers, that were like, you might remember this, like there was a period where we were like developers, developers, developers. I've been pushing for that for so long, to try to pivot into into supporting developers and making Steam feel like a home, and Steam it feel like a home for developers. And I got a lot of resistance from that internally, um, at first. Eventually, I got through and was able to do it. But then the problem became that we that be, for whatever reason, okay, it was really hard to work with Steam, as a developer back then. Um, and B, because of like the existing platforms and because of people's perceptions around what's around Steam as really Steam it, we we weren't getting the developer talent. Like we weren't getting a lot of like good enough developers. Those who were good enough would want to like work on the chain, which like sorely needed support. So I think I could come around to the view that now with um, AI coding assistants making development so much more accessible, maybe there's something there. I mean, I'm building an app myself. I love using these tools. I believe in entrepreneurship and building. Um, if people can build on Hive, if the tooling is such that it's finally there, I mean, I find that exciting. I'm like getting excited about the idea. Like if you can build an Uber on Hive, yeah, I mean, sounds good to me. I like, it's weird. Look, I feel like I'm here to give the outside perspective, not to just go along with everything. So in that spirit, I will add that to me the thing holding that back is, it makes me want to vomit in my mouth to actually say this. 100, I'm telling the truth. This makes me want to vomit in my mouth. Saying these words, smart media tokens. But the reason being that if I'm trying to build an Uber on top of Hive, um, I want to launch my own crypto, um, and yeah, so like, but of course, like, look, I was a booster for that concept, so maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's not necessary. I will just add that. I will just throw that out there, that as a counter argument. Um, but like, I'm open. I'm open to the idea that if you can build apps like Uber, I mean, it begs the question, like, why hasn't anyone yet? Um, I don't know. Have the issues around onboarding been resolved? Because like a big challenge that we faced was just onboarding enough people, like really, in order, like, Hive will obviously be more valuable the more users it has. It's a network, you know. So that was always one of the problems that we struggled with, was that we'd get some attention, people would stream in and try to become users, but we really we like literally didn't have the accounts to give them. And so a lot of work went into that. is that still a challenge?
It is onboarding a challenge. Honestly, one of the reasons why I built Snappy was because of onboarding being a challenge. Because Hive was
But
just, in
like,
my opinion, difficult. You know.
yeah, but is it a challenge like from a communications perspective or from like a resource perspective? I mean, like, does it,
I-
you know what I mean?
I'd like to share one thing. Hive now has support for Ethereum wallets, so Ethereum wallets can hold Hive and HBD easily through MetaMask. So you no longer need to actually create a Hive account.
Hmm.
Yeah,
But
that's pretty cool. But here's the thing that I think it should make you bullish. That's the
hey,
conversation we
Matt.
had
Hey,
with
Matt.
yeah, we had with block trade some months ago, and maybe 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, the B devs released a solution. I think one of the things that we need in order to go mainstream is for all the apps to be able to be accessed with just Google logins. And it's something that I know some people tried to do. Leo did it. I don't think Leo did it correctly, in my opinion. But the B devs actually released a tool using Wax that can do it with a blob that goes in your Google Drive, and it's encrypted, and so you host it yourself, and it's super safe to do and all this stuff. So one of the things that I'm integrating into Snappy, and it's going to take me a while because you have to build a lot to get it to work, is going to be Google login. So imagine you have a Hive app, right? And to give you the flow that you download straight from the App Store using your Google email, right? And you create your account right there with Google, and then you log in. You don't know your keys, doesn't matter. You just put a password, and the password unlocks, decodes, decrypts the keys that are stored in your Google Drive that are, and that's how you broadcast all the transactions. As far as you're concerned as a user, you're just using the app. You don't understand keys, you don't understand this crypto thing, but you're interacting, you're posting, you can send money. You don't understand, but obviously it the 90% of the work is done. It's the last 10% that is going to take quite a bit of do. I'm already doing it, but I've been doing it for a couple weeks. But you have to make all these tools. But I think that is something to be very bullish about. And if all apps start to integrate something like that, that would be amazing. Um,
So, sorry, yeah. I'd like to get a message out there before I forget.
Hold on, hold on, hold on,
I,
hold
oop,
on. We're getting into after
but
chat
okay.
here. The recording is still
You're
on.
Yeah,
But
we're still recording. And so we generally do an hour. We ran a little bit long here. So first off, I want to say thank you for coming on, Andrarchy. It's been really nice to be chatting with you. And why don't you give us your final thoughts here in this moment, and then we'll turn the official recording off, and then we can keep the chat going in the after.
Sure. Yeah. Sounds good. Yeah. Well, just thank you guys. Thanks for having me. I hope I didn't offend anybody. That wasn't my intention. Um, I am here to help. I love um, helping people build businesses, work on their messaging, um, think through kind of their business model. So if anybody's looking to build a business, build their app, all whatever ideas I shared here, ultimately all I care about is helping people out, quite frankly, just helping people however I can, um, helping people build their brands, build their businesses, build their applications. So yeah, I'm here to help. I'm happy to, if anybody wants to reach out to me privately, hey, I'm working on this app. This is what I'm thinking. This is how I'm thinking of messaging it. Here's the business model I'm thinking. I'm happy to help with that stuff. I'm here to help people. I love helping people build successful businesses, which I suppose wouldn't be obvious from anything that I've said here. So like, yeah, if people have ideas for businesses that they want to build on Hive, I'm more than happy. I think that is the key. You build successful businesses on Hive, Hive will be successful 100%. So yeah, maybe that should be the focus, and I'd be happy to support people in those efforts.
Well, thanks, Andrarchy. I again appreciate you coming on, and that's a nice little final note to put on there. Thanks, Mino, for having the questionos, and yeah, it's been an interesting chat. I feel yeah, I feel like I went through a little therapy session, like I said in the beginning. I'm feeling I'm better, ready for the world again. But next week we have on PH 1123. Did I get the 1123? I can't remember what the following 1102. And so tune in for that. And this has been another edition of Hive Thrive. We thank everybody for joining us, and we invite you to continue the chat in the after show. Goodbye.